We're about to dive into one of the biggest, most personal questions you could ever ask, and, maybe challenge everything you think you know about the answer. In this explainer, we are digging into the myth of identity.
So, let me just ask you, straight up, who are you? Seriously, take a second. Your mind probably jumps to a few standard things, right? Your name, your job, maybe a personality trait like, oh, I'm an introvert, or a role, I'm a parent. It's kind of like your mental business card, you know?
But here's where it gets interesting. What if I told you that all of those labels, the ones we hold on to so tightly, what if they aren't the real you? What if the very idea of who you think you are is, well, just an idea? And that brings us right to our first big concept, the identity illusion. We're going to start peeling back the layers of this thing we call the self.
I mean, your identity feels totally solid, doesn't it? It feels like the one thing that's constant in a world that's always changing. But the argument we're exploring here is that this feeling of solidity, it might just be the most convincing illusion we've ever bought into.
Okay, so if it's an illusion, then where did it come from? How was it even built? Well, that takes us to the idea of the assembled self. The concept that your identity isn't some deep core essence you were born with, but something that's been put together piece by piece over your whole life. Just think about this for a second. Your name? You didn't pick it. Someone gave it to you. Your deepest beliefs about how the world works, a lot of those were probably handed to you by your family, your culture, your school, long before you ever thought to question them. Even your personality, it's been molded and shaped by every single thing that's ever happened to you. And all the roles you play, as an employee, a citizen, a friend, society pretty much lays out the rules for those. This completely flips that whole idea of finding yourself on its head, right? We think of it like we're on some grand quest to unearth a hidden treasure. But this way of looking at it suggests it's much more like a construction project. We're constantly just assembling who we are from all these parts we find along the way. All right, so if the self is assembled, what about the pieces themselves? Are they at least stable? Are they permanent? Well, that's what we're going to dig into next, the illusion of permanence. So, first up, your thoughts. I mean, think about it. What were you thinking about an hour ago? What are you thinking about right this second? They never stop moving. They're like a river, not a rock. And it's the same thing with your beliefs. Think of something you were absolutely 100% certain of 5 years ago. Do you still believe it with that same fire today? For most of us, our beliefs change. They evolve. What was once a core part of who we were can just become something we used to think. And get this, even our past, which feels like the bedrock of our story, isn't as solid as we think. We now know that memories aren't like perfect video recordings. They're actually reconstructions, and they can fade and warp and literally change every single time you remember them. Which leads us to this really powerful, kind of scary question. If your thoughts and your beliefs and even your own memories are all constantly changing, what's left? What part of you actually stays the same through all of that? Yeah, I know. That question can feel a little unsettling, which actually leads us perfectly into our next section. If our identity is so flimsy, so impermanent, then why on earth do we cling to the idea of a fixed self so desperately? Well, a fixed identity makes a pretty good promise, doesn't it? It promises a certainty, a sense of belonging, safety. But the reality is, it's really just a script. It tells us who we are supposed to be and how we're supposed to act. And the real motivation for clinging to that script, it's often just a deep down fear of emptiness, a fear of not knowing who we are without it. And that's really the heart of it. Our constructed identity is basically a psychological comfort blanket. It's super useful for getting by in the world, for sure. But we make this huge mistake of thinking the story we tell about ourselves is ourselves. It's a tool, not the truth. Okay, so this is the big moment. If we set aside that whole assembled story, if we look past all the labels and the roles that are always changing, what's left? What are we really at our core? When all those labels finally fall away, one thing is still there. The simple, undeniable fact of awareness itself. Before you are a name or a job or a personality, you are just aware. It's like the canvas that everything else gets painted on. And that awareness, you can feel it as presence. That raw experience of just being here, right now, in this moment. It's that feeling you get when you're quiet, before your mind rushes in to start telling you what's happening. So when you put these two together, awareness and presence, you get a whole new way of seeing yourself. You can call it the witness. This isn't a character in the movie of your life. It's the conscious space that the whole movie is playing in. It's the part of you that's watching your thoughts and feeling your emotions and experiencing your life without getting totally lost on the plot. And this, right here, is the ultimate shift. You have a name, but you are not your name. You have a body, but you are not just your body. You have thoughts, but you are the silent awareness that notices the thoughts. You are not the story. You are the one witnessing it. So we'll leave you with this last thought to chew on. Maybe the whole point of life isn't to find some final static identity and lock it down forever. Maybe it's about constantly creating and letting go. Maybe the journey was never about finding yourself. It was about constantly outgrowing yourself to make room for whatever comes next. So the real question is, what story are you ready to outgrow?